All right. A warm welcome to you all this evening, and thank you for attending this additional meeting. This is focused agenda with only 2 key items: a discussion around provision of training sessions and further consideration of the proposal for the fund's investment strategy, which were first introduced at the March committee. So before we begin the main agenda, can we please cover the administrative items, starting with the apologies. Agenda item 2, apology for absence. I've got an apology from Councillor Walker, Councillor Ozen, and
I'm attending
Henry. Any other apologies? No?
Chair, I'm attending virtually online.
Any other apology? I can't hear.
I'm connected online.
Oh, I'm going for listeners. Okay. We've been joined online by Jonathan, Georgia, Councillor Adebayo. And who is online? Anybody else?
Councillor Ozen, Jan.
Yeah, it's me.
And you've got Natalie Williams joining.
Okay, thank you. Right. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Members may declare any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest in any item coming before the pension committee. They must state the item for which they are declaring an interest and what the interest is, as this must be properly minuted. Where the declaration is for disclosable pecuniary interest, the members must leave the room when the item in which the members has an interest is being discussed, unless the members has obtained dispensation from monitoring officer or standard committee to remain in the room and participate in the meeting. Where a member has a non-pecuniary interest, he or she must declare existence and nature of interest in relation to the relevant agenda item. As soon as it becomes apparent to him or her, he or she may remain in the room, participate in discussion, or vote, provided the contractual, financial, consent, permission, or licensing matters are not under consideration relating to the item in which the members has an interest. If this is so, the members must leave the room unless the members has obtained a dispensation from the monitoring officer or standard committee. Agenda, any declaration of interest? Yes, Councillor Clark.
I receive a local government pension.
Councillor Gordon, you want to speak?
I mean, I'm just going to say that I'm a deferred member of the scheme, but that's so.
Thank you for that. Moving on to agenda item 2A.
Chair, sorry, could we clear this bit up? Because I wasn't ever going to, I didn't come to this committee for years because I am a pensioner for the fund. But I was told quite authoritatively that you don't have to declare it, and it's okay for this committee. Could you give guidance on this? Otherwise, I would want to be declaring the same as my 2 colleagues.
So my understanding is that membership of the scheme does not need to be declared outside the standard register of interests. So it doesn't need to be redeclared at each meeting.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2A, training sessions, training discussion. I wanted to raise this issue with the committee. Oh, welcome, Vice Chair. So let me start again. Training discussion. I wanted to raise this issue with committee as a number of members have highlighted it. As you are all aware, pensions committee meetings can be extremely long. A number of you have therefore requested that training sessions should be held outside of the main committee business meeting. Are you following me? Yes? Councillor Troughton?
Yes.
Councillor Troughton? Are you following me? Are you following what I'm saying? Okay, tell me, that's what I'm asking you. Do you follow me? If you don't follow me, then I'm going to repeat. Okay,
You're asking me.
okay, maybe I'll stay back from it. Is that better? Is that better now? So how do we do it? Okay, right. Agenda item 2A, I'm going to slow down,
Mhm.
right? Training discussion. So we're going to talk about training because sometimes, maybe I just try to read it, say it out rather than reading it. So this is about the training being part of the committee agenda item. Sometimes make the meeting so long. So now most people they've raised the issue that why don't we take the training out of the committee agenda item so we can have the training outside the committee meetings so that the agenda items will be too long for us
Mhm.
so that we can finish on time. Are you following what I'm saying so far? Does that make sense? Okay. So now what they are proposing, maybe I can get Rachel or Jackie to explain more of what we are proposing.
Yep, I'm happy to. So, but, you know, clearly we are aware that the business meetings of the committee are currently extremely long. There's an awful lot of information that's distributed at meetings, and so it has been. The chair has raised with us that it might be worth trialling a different approach to training. So obviously at present we run a sort of 45-minute training session at each of the main 4 business meetings of the year. What's been suggested is that for sort of 2 to 3 sessions, we trial an approach whereby we remove the training from the business meeting and run a separate but related training session, which will be delivered in a similar way. So probably a hybrid approach. In the hope that sort of breaking up the meetings a little bit and looking to slightly more frequent but shorter sessions is a bit easier for everybody to manage. What we do need to be really, really mindful of is that obviously there are knowledge and skills requirements placed upon the committee, and that's also, you know, we have a knowledge and skills policy, and that's set out in the policy. So there is a requirement on you as committee members to attend training and to be able to evidence that you meet the required standards. So obviously, you know, what concerns us around moving to that model would obviously be attendance. So what we've agreed with the chair is to look at a trial period. We run 2 to 3 sessions of separate training. And we see if that's easier for people to manage. We will monitor individual attendance, and if that's satisfactory, and if you consider it a preferable approach, then obviously we can look to continue with that. If we find that attendance at training is falling below what we've been getting at the main business meetings, and I think we would look to go back to integrating the training into the main meeting, because it is so important that people attend where they can, and I can't emphasize that enough. You know, we appreciate that we really appreciate that you do have to put time into doing this. You know, we know that it can be quite a challenging committee, and that there are a lot of requirements placed on you. And really, we are just looking to work with you as a committee to understand what the easiest way for you to attend training and learn what you need to learn is.
Yes, Councillor Radbourne.
That's my name. I just I'm the kind of let's just deal with me. I'm the kind of person. If you give me like a 20-minute lecture, I just not taking it in at all after about the first 5 minutes. I mean, I know all the stuff about bit communications, all that rubbish, but it's not rubbish actually. It's information. But what helps me is if I can ask questions. I mean, we've just been in a session now, and some people think I keep interrupting. Well, I do, because I want to understand, and if I want to understand at the points that I receive the information. So if the training was like that, and sometimes that makes it longer, but it also, for me personally, makes it more effective, and that I can keep asking questions and keep going back and saying, oh, actually, at the start you said this, I'm not sure if I really understand that. I think that kind of training, because some of the SIPFA training is just like, you're given a lecture, you know, and there's 10 minutes of questions. It just doesn't work for me. It just goes.
Thank you. And you know, we do think that is one of the one of the valuable parts about having training in the main business meeting has been that it, you know, it does, for people who it works for, it can encourage attendance in person, and where people like you want to ask questions and have that interaction. We think that's quite a valuable thing. And you know, that's something we will obviously
things, as you know, and I don't know what the answer is, but we need to find an answer, because, you know, we all have working lives and other lives as well as councillors. We are, after all, you know, as it were, effectively volunteers, most of us, so I'm just trying to be helpful and trying to find a way forward. How that, maybe it is that 45 minutes at the start of a committee is a good way of doing it. I think it probably is, but that eats into the time of the committee as well, which is a problem then, isn't it? Another problem. But I think separate briefings, I don't think work as well. And it's got to be on the evenings, because, you know, we've all got things going on during the day, so.
yeah, and you know, we will take your views into account. As I said, it's something that we've been asked to consider. The 45 minutes at the start of the meeting is an approach that we've had in place for a number of years, because we felt that it helps attendance. You know, we've been asked to consider an alternative approach, and it's, you know, it's something that we are happy to trial, because we want the training approach to work for as many members as possible. You know, if it's the case that after one session none of you feel that you have the time for an additional evening, then I think we will have fairly clear feedback that 45 minutes at the start of the business meeting is in fact the way to go. You know, we know that the SIPFA requirements are really challenging. We know that, you know, it can often feel as though you are being bombarded with information. But there is a duty on the committee to maintain a certain level of knowledge and skills. We have to find a way for you to take this information in somehow. And it's, you know, what we're trying to do by trialing a different approach is to see, you know, is there a way that works better for people. And, you know, one of the challenges I think we're likely to have is that we will probably get a slightly different answer from all 9 people if we ask you. And, you know, what we have to do is we can trial a couple of different approaches and, look at how many people are attending the training, look at, whether look at whether you found the training engaging and whether you feel you have learned something from it. And we can only go by the feedback that you give us. And on that note, could I please make a plea for a couple? At the January committee meeting, we raised the issue of the knowledge and skills survey, which we did not have a particularly robust response to it. We will resend it. It is long. Please, could I ask people to look at it when they have time, as it does try to tackle some of these issues and give us an indication of, how we can plan and how we can tailor a training program that works for people. Yes, I will do.
Yeah, because right on, the reason why this conversation is taking place is because some people, after about 20 minutes, half an hour to the meeting, they lost focus. They can't concentrate anymore. They can't take any more of what's going on, and they are unable to participate effectively. So that is the reason we are looking for a way to see whether we can take the training out of the committee agenda so that people can actually focus on the real item on the agenda rather than training. So, it's been like that for a long time, just to look for solution to solve this problem. So now we're bringing it up. So, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm afraid mine is probably a bit different. My sort of training, what would work for me is different for my colleague. Obviously, some of this training is bespoke to Hackney, but a lot of it must be quite generic. Isn't there anything that is available for all pension, for councillors sitting on all pension boards? Because I think, and I know everyone's different, but what would work for me actually would be ideally podcasts, or just recorded materials that I could access in my own time. That would really work a lot better for me actually. So I could just sort of, on the sort of more generic stuff.
Yep. So there are generic courses available, and I know that Aon, who do our governance and benefits consultancy, they have started to record some of their generic training sessions. So that's something that we can start to make available. There are increasingly some online materials that we can look to send out to people. I think once we have a clearer view of the approach that people want to take, then we can start to sort of tailor, well, how exactly do we deliver training. But I think one of the challenges we have is clearly evident there, that different members of the committee will have vastly different preferences, and what we need to try and do is find an approach that works for as many people as possible. My feeling is that in the future that will probably look like a hybrid approach where we try to hold some in-person events to make sure people are getting that sort of live feedback, but also then to supplement that with remote training materials.
1 minute. Councillor Adebayo.
Thank you. I just want to echo what my colleagues have said. I'm in full-time employment, and sometimes I have to attend training at work. And, some of us enjoy attending training, something that I love a lot. So if we separate the training session away from the main session of the day, take the 45 minutes out, and then we have this training separately, it will help a lot. Because if you're in full-time employment, most of the time you're in front of the computer, you're thinking, your concentration. By the time you get home and then rush back to join the meeting or come to the meeting, and then, you know, taking the training in, sometimes by the time you spend about half an hour, it's like, oh, okay, I have to bring myself back in. So I would like to suggest that we take the 45 minutes out and then we run the training separately.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo that point about you can't hear without the microphone on. You start talking, that's right, with the earphones on. Anyway, yeah, to echo the point about online materials. I mean, we've been on this committee a long time, but we've talked about this many, many times before. I mean, I can remember Councillor Billington raised it when she was first on the committee. I can remember Councillor Demirci talking about it, and it does seem to be, you know, a way forward, especially since I understand, and I know I had a conversation with you about this earlier today, that that's the way we're going forward for quite a lot of the other training on the council as well. Having said that, I'm completely happy to go away, to go ahead with the recommendation you're making at the moment about in-person training. But I think, you know, just in terms of flexibility of members' time, it's always useful to have that as a supplement, and B, for people who won't be able to make the time to, you know, the particular session, especially as Councillor Appo says, we're actually getting overwhelmed with this now. You know, we've got what is it, 12 sessions a year compulsory training session anyway coming up on us, and endless numbers of briefings. So, you know, the way it's a question of a number of different approaches at once, I think. Yeah, look, other people have different learning styles as well, don't they? It's worth bearing in mind that some people could relate very well to, you know, written materials, others to in-person sessions, you know, different ways of doing things. But yeah, you know.
Councillor Troughton, any comment?
I'm fairly relaxed about it. You know, I think online courses are quite helpful, and particularly if they're pre-recorded, you know, we can take them at the pace that we want. I think it's quite useful to do things like a quick assessment at the end, just to check that you've absorbed, you know, the information, multiple choice, maybe 3 or 4 questions at the end of a session. But if they can be bite-sized, I think that does really help. Similarly, you know, when we went on the 2-day training last year, I really enjoyed that, and I really felt I learned a lot, and I took a lot away with me from that, you know, that is still with me today. So, yeah, there's pros and cons. I think a mixture is a good thing.
Councillor Ayers, any comment?
I think my preference would be for it to probably continue in the same way that it has done, but open to giving a new way a try. I just think we're all quite constrained, and so doing it within the meeting was, on balance, probably the best option. But happy, as I say, happy to give other options a try.
Councillor Troughton.
Sorry, when Councillor Hayhurst said that, I realised that you know, if we're doing training within the meeting, the acoustics in the council chamber are so awful that, you know, I find it really hard to take things in. You know, it depends on who's delivering it, but very much depends on who's delivering it. But, you know, if people don't have a voice that projects, then I really find it very, very difficult to hear.
We'll certainly take that on board, as I think we have found the acoustics in here quite challenging, and also it can be a technical challenge running hybrid training in here. If we're able to use it, my preference is certainly the committee rooms, but I'm not sure if those are available. So,
What's been proposed is that we have like a training portal whereby you can do it, like you said, have a multiple choice. At the end, you get a certificate that you've completed it, be sent to you, which you can send to Rachel or send to Jackie for them to show that you've done it, rather than just you say, oh, I've done it. But when you get to the end of it, it will ask you some multiple questions, like you said, or some questions to test your understanding. If you don't get it right, you can go over it again. So once you get to the bottom, when you click, it will tell you that, like a testimonial certificate that you've done it, which you can forward to Rachel to show that you've done it. So do you all want us to try a new method, or do you want to carry on the way it is? Yes, let's speak up. Do you want to carry on the way it is, or do you want to try the new method? Okay.
I rather we try the new method.
Councillor Adebayo, you want something to say?
No, the new method. The proposed method.
I hear you. Can you say that again?
I said I'm in favor of us trying the proposed method.
Okay. So we all agree that we should try that one. If it doesn't work, then we come back to what we do now. Yes, Councillor Chapman?
In agreeing that, can we ask that we seriously explore all the other ways of training as well, online and recorded materials and things like that as well?
Do you take that one on board?
Yep, that's noted. Thank you.
Okay, but the key thing is that if this is made available to us, we have to make sure that we actually attempted to do it, because it's going to take a lot of effort for the officer to put all this in up. And when they put them up and we don't show up or we don't attempt to do it, there's a waste of time, and we're just back to square one. So far, the attendance of training has not been great. So it would be nice for us to actually make an effort to attend trainings to make sure that we are compliant with what is required to be a member of pension committee. Thank you. Can we move on now? Yes, is that okay to move on? Everybody happy? Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
No, Debayo, yes.
Yes. Does that mean the other time we attended 2 days training somewhere in Liverpool Street? That was very, very helpful. Does that mean we're going to cancel that? Because they send us another training for 10th and 11th, which I've put myself forward to attend. Does that mean we're going to cancel the outside training? It will be only internet training now.
No, we will still make external training sessions will still be available to everybody, and we'd really encourage you to attend them.
Thank you.
The whole idea is just to give options, to make sure, try everything, to make sure everybody just participate rather than just one dimensional, and you're not getting the out of it. So I think that's what it's all about, rather than canceling anything. So is that okay? Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now we move on to agenda item 3, strategic asset allocation review, high level discussion, page 3 to 8. This report presents the pension committee with high level proposal for a review of the fund's strategic assets allocation, following on from the discussion paper presented at the 30th March 2023 Pensions Committee meeting. It recommends investment into 3 new asset classes to help the funds achieve its climate targets, meet its cash flow needs, and meet leveling up requirements. So can I invite Rachel to introduce the report, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this report is a continuation of the discussion that was introduced at the last Pensions Committee at the end of March. So at the last committee, Reddington presented a series of options around the fund's strategic asset allocation, and introduced a series of proposals around allocating to multi-asset credit, to impact property, and to nature-based solutions. So we had quite a lengthy discussion around this at the March committee. This paper and this discussion and this committee is intended to give members the opportunity to go over any of the previous material. If there are any further questions, to look in a little bit more detail at the asset classes that are being recommended. And the paper also now presents a recommendation to make those allocations to the asset classes we've discussed. So with that, if I could hand over to Jill and Sam, who will take you through the slide pack in a little bit more detail. This appendix itself is exempt, so if I could ask the chair to recommend we go into exempt session for this part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So the pensions committee is recommended to approve the following new allocations as set out in the recommended revised strategic asset allocation presented in Appendix 1. Stroman 1, page 16. Multi-asset credit, 5%. Impact property, 5%. Nature-based solutions, 5%. The allocation are to be funded as described in Appendix 1, Stroman 1, page 16. For discussion on the exempt appendix, exclusion of the press and public. That the press and public be excluded during the consideration of agenda item 5 on the grounds that it is likely, in the view of the nature of the business to be transacted, that when members of the public to be present, there will be a disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. So can we please ask Mario to stop live streaming, please? Thank you.